My name is Naomi Mercer, and the day found my key no longer opened my grandmother's cottage. Something in me changed that has never changed back. 3 days earlier, I had stood in probate court holding the deed to the cottage at Breaker Cove. My grandmother Eleanor had left it to me outright. No shared inheritance, no family arrangement, no conditions. Her attorney told me she had made her wishes unusually clear. I believed clarity would prevent conflict. I did not understand that clear documents can make greedy people move faster. When I pulled into the gravel drive that Friday afternoon, I saw my sister Vivian's car beneath the cypress trees. That unsettled me. Then I saw the new lock, and I knew. The old lock had always stuck in damp weather. My grandmother used to laugh and say the house only opened for people who belonged there. My key stopped halfway. Before I could knock, the door opened. Vivian stood barefoot in the doorway, holding a glass of white wine. I still remember how ordinary she looked. That was what made it cruel. Not rage, not guilt, comfort. As though she had already settled into a life she had no right to claim. Behind her were 2 suitcases. Her throw blanket covered Grandma's chair. A framed wedding photograph sat where my grandmother used to keep seashells gathered from the shore. She smiled. "You made good time." I heard myself ask, "Why doesn't my key work?" "Dad changed the locks." Just like that. No hesitation, no shame. I looked at her. "What are you doing here?" "Moving in." Then my parents came out. My mother looked nervous. My father looked irritated. That hurt more. If he had looked ashamed, maybe part of me would have recognized the man who raised me. But he looked inconvenienced, as if I had interrupted something practical. My mother said, "Vivian needs this more." There are sentences that split your life in 2. That was one of mine, because it was not about property anymore. It was confirmation of every smaller thing before it. Every time Vivian was rescued. Every time I was expected to understand. Every time my sacrifices had been treated as character, while hers were treated as emergencies. I looked at them all, and I left. Not because I was weak, because I suddenly understood arguing on that porch would help them. So I drove to the marina and called the probate attorney. When he answered, his voice changed when I told him about the locks. Not surprised, concerned. Then he told me something my grandmother had arranged. Protections. If anyone tried occupying the property without my consent, there was a procedure. Civil standby, immediate re-entry. And he had already initiated it, because my mother had called his office that morning trying to secure key authorization for Vivian. I sat in my car staring at the water and started laughing. Then crying. Not from relief, from the realization my grandmother had expected this. She had known. That knowledge broke my heart more than the betrayal. The next morning, Deputy Owen Barrett stood at the door with a locksmith, and everything began to unravel. My father admitted changing the locks, called it a misunderstanding. The deputy asked if I had authorized occupancy. No. That single word changed the ground beneath everyone. The locksmith started drilling out the deadbolt, and then my father made his mistake. He kept trying. The deputy asked about a second packet. My father hesitated. Then my attorney called, on speaker. He announced an attempted filing had been made that morning trying to establish occupancy rights for Vivian. Rejected. My mother turned white. But it got worse. A title officer called next. Someone had attempted to alter my deed, to reduce my ownership, transfer the remainder to Vivian, using a supporting acknowledgement supposedly signed by me. Forged. Even now, saying that word still feels unreal. My own parents, not pressuring me, not manipulating me, trying to forge around me. Vivian looked genuinely confused, and for the first time, I saw something I had missed. She had not understood everything. She had believed them too. That changed something in me. Not forgiveness. Complication. She looked at our mother and said quietly, "You told me Grandma wanted both of us protected." And suddenly, she did not look like a golden child. She looked like another daughter who had been fed a different lie. That made it real. That made it sad. Because villains are easy. Family is harder. Then the title officer explained my grandmother had placed a protective memorandum in the file. Any attempt by family members to alter the transfer would be flagged, preserved, documented, remembered. My grandmother had not merely given me the house. She had prepared for her children to betray her wishes. I think that was the moment I grieved her all over again. Because even in protecting me, she had been forced to understand what her own children were. Vivian moved out that day, but what I remember most is not the luggage, not the deputy, not the locksmith. It was when Vivian paused beside the door, carrying a suitcase, and said, without looking at me, "I thought they were helping me." And I believed she meant it. That sentence did more than all the legal filings. It exposed the damage. Not property damage, family damage. My father said almost nothing during the move-out. But once, while the deputy was outside, he looked at me and said, very quietly, "You could have let your sister stay." And that was the truest thing he said all weekend. Because even then, after forgery, after filings, after being caught, he still thought the betrayal was my refusal, not his actions. That was when I understood he would never see it, and I stopped needing him to. The first night alone in the cottage again, I sat on the back deck listening to the ocean. I expected triumph. What I felt was grief. For my grandmother, for my family, for the years I spent believing fairness existed if I behaved well enough. I cried harder that night than I had during the entire confrontation. Because winning something your family tried to steal does not feel like winning. It feels like surviving. By Tuesday, the forged filing had been rejected, preservation holds were entered, and no further transfer attempt could happen without court intervention. Legally, it was over. Emotionally, it was not. My mother stopped calling. My father sent one email saying I had humiliated the family. Vivian sent a handwritten note. Just one sentence. I'm beginning to think Grandma was protecting both of us. I still keep that note, because it reminds me the story was never really about a house. It was about what gets exposed when money, favoritism, and entitlement collide, and what survives when truth has records. My parents thought changing the locks would make me powerless. What they did not understand was my grandmother had built a second defense. Not in anger, in foresight. And when their lies met the paper trail she left behind, the whole thing collapsed. Not because I fought harder, because she saw farther.